Ellen DeGeneres has been the focus of a lot of things during the year 2020, and a lot of it has been about her show and whether it should be canceled because of various things that have been going on behind the scenes. But what exactly are these things? Do we really need to worry about it? And why do so many people care about this? Allow us to reveal why the show may be canceled. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 5. It's 2020 and the workplace is still not safe for all. Let's start with something that honestly applies not just to Ellen's daytime talk show, but to a lot of Hollywood shows right now. Mainly, the safety and sanctity of the workplace. Now, if you're concerned by what we mean, by that, it's honestly quite simple. We're talking about how when it comes right down to it, the workplaces in Hollywood have proven time and time again that working there in a non-star capacity, and sometimes in a starring capacity, is not safe, nor fun, nor fair, nor not without bias by certain people in charge. You may remember the #MeToo movement, or the #SpeakingOut movement that happened in wrestling where both men and women were forced to do terrible things in order to get jobs, stay relevant, and on and on. You'd think that these things were from the past, but the Me Too movement wasn't too long ago, and the Speaking Out movement happened this year. So why do we bring up Ellen's show? That would be because it's had its own little speaking out moment, talking about how the show has been a toxic workplace, full of discrimination and lack of empathy towards minorities and their heritage, and of course, Ellen not being the nicest person ever, which in this case has caused a lot of problems. Number 4. The two faces of Ellen. It's not hard to believe that someone like Ellen DeGeneres has many faces. If you really want to boil it down, just about everyone has a face they put on in public and then one that they have in private. That's kind of how humanity works, and that's okay to an extent. But like many of those people, her other face is not one that is kind when the camera is off. Apparently, while Ellen acts like an energetic child on her show when the camera is on, when she's not on camera, she's apparently a tyrant. A workplace complaint that was filed against her once noted that she treated her workers like peasants, and that she would force them to do long hours of work, and then turn around and leave to go to parties without inviting the staff, or only inviting people that she liked or personally groomed. You might say, well, it's not a bad thing to have some people like you more than others. But don't lose the plot here. While favoritism is fine to an extent, don't forget that she's working these people really hard, sometimes to the point of mental and physical exhaustion. Number 3. How not to stay healthy. So as noted, it apparently is really hard to work at a show like Ellen's, but you might not be aware of just how hard it can be to work on the show. We already mentioned the working really hard, but sometimes that means working 10-hour days or more, which they apparently don't always get paid overtime for, which is not fair or technically legal, but it's Hollywood, so there's obviously ways to get around that. Furthermore, let's say you're one of the unlucky ones who works so hard you need to get checked out by the doctors. Guess what? Up until recently, that would have been impossible. How so? Well, apparently, they had to go to the doctor on their own time and couldn't use sick days or medical leave of any kind because they didn't have any. Yes, we're being very serious here. Despite working on a show that literally has the moniker of Be Kind, that apparently didn't apply to Be Kind to Your Bodies and Minds. Because in an expose written about the show, it revealed that certain people who went during workdays to get medical treatment or took time off the show to get well mentally were fired. Yeah, if you weren't on the show, they'd find someone to replace you very easily. Does that sound like a great place to work? Now, Warner Media and Ellen will tell you that in light of recent events and testimony, that certain work perks have been added, including having medical leave and sick days and even getting their birthdays off. Which is great, but that should have been there originally. Plus, as many noted, the perks that they got were the same perks used in non-Hollywood jobs for people who work in minimum wage in places like pizza stores. So despite being on a high-profile show, they're not getting any perks that are better than that of working a regular job. Number 2. Toxic environment. Sadly, we're still not to some of the worst parts, which in this case is the discrimination and racist behavior that was done on the show by 3 now former executive producers. In the expose we mentioned earlier, numerous women of African American backgrounds talked about the writers and the executive producers on the show that were incredibly toxic in their behavior and how they disrespected them. In one case, during a party, a writer made a racist joke about how 2 of the African American women looked alike and said, "I hope I could tell you 2 apart," to which he laughed and no one defended them. Another made a similar joke by saying, "I only know the names of white people around here." As if all that wasn't terrible enough, every time these women complained about the workplace environment or about a skit on Ellen that was offensive to their race, they were talked down to, told to just look beyond it, and when they continued to speak out, they were punished. Many left the show because they didn't want to deal with it anymore. But who can blame them? Number 1. The fallout was not enough. If we're being honest, a really big reason why the show needs to be canceled is that the fallout that did come from the internal investigation wasn't enough. Yes, the 3 executive producers that were named in the exposé about the show were fired, and the workers got a boost in perks and promises that this wouldn't happen again. Which is nice, but that's not all that was wrong with the show, including how Ellen was known to treat staff poorly. Ellen's only real punishment was having a black eye on her brand, and many people talking down to her about how things were happening. There are some people in the celebrity world that have no beef with Ellen, yet are noting that she either needs to be honest with them all, or that they heard about this bad behavior for years. Yet she didn't have to do anything but make an apology. It's 2020. How is it we're not getting better at protecting those that need protecting? So there you go, everyone, a look at the Ellen DeGeneres show, and why it's a show that needs to be canceled, and honestly, should be canceled, because of the various things that happened there. Can you believe how far some of these things went before being exposed? Do you feel the show should be canceled? Or will it continue on for a long time yet? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.